Would you like a cup of coffee or anything else?
No thanks.
Mr. Halligan, how may I help you?
As I said, I'm working on the skeleton murders. We found another victim in Epping Forest. All the evidence points to the same culprit as in the other cases. The corpse was completely skeletonized. Professional work.
That's horrible. But how can I help you?
My colleague Chris Hecker of the Forensic Lab has already had a look at the bones. He thought that your father could perhaps carry out some additional tests. He is a renowned expert, after all.
Yes, he could do that. But as I said, my father isn't here.
I know, but it is very urgent. Perhaps you could have a look?
You say you've got some of the bones with you?
Yes, just one. Here.
This is a femur.
Yes, that's what Chris Hecker said as well.
It will take some time, Mr. Halligan. Could you wait a moment?
I would like to ask you some questions about your work, just out of interest. What are all these strange things here in your lab?
They're things my father and I have brought back from various expeditions. They have to be catalogued, will then become part of the permanent exhibition of our museum. Some things are personal presents. We keep those, of course.
You see quite a lot of the world, don't you?
Yes, that's part of my job.
What's your father's current research project?
He's in Kenya studying initiation rituals.
What?
The rituals carried out when the childhoods of boys and girls end and they're admitted to the circle of adults.
How long have you been working here?
Several years. My father helped me to get the job here at the museum.
Connections are indispensable nowadays, aren't they?
I was the most qualified applicant. But it's not easy to gain acceptance with the old boys of the museum's board when you're a woman. You have to be at least twice as good as the best male applicant.
And you were?
Of course I was. It's been decided that I'll be the head of the museum as soon as my father retires.
When will that be?
In 5 years?
Then you will have achieved a lot for someone your age.
How old do you think I am?
I'd say 29.
Exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I'm sure that Miss Turner is more than qualified for this position and the right person for this job, but it still sounds a little bit like nepotism.
What's your research field?
I specialise in sacrificial rites.
Sacrificial rites? That's an unusual research field for a young woman.
Do you think so? I don't think you should divide preferred science fields for men or women, Mr. Halligan.
No, I didn't mean it like that. I just think that you must have to do with death all the time if you research sacrifices.
Death is part of our existence, Mr. Halligan. In all cultures, all around the world.
You're telling me. If you take it like that, we are almost like colleagues.
Maybe. But it's not my job to put people in jail. I document the sacrificial rites of different cultures in order to help create a better mutual understanding.
What is there to be understood about murder?
I'm not saying that I approve of everything I research, Mr. Halligan, but in foreign cultures, not all sacrificial rites are regarded as murder. Most cultures sacrifice animals or plants, and they do so for religious reasons. Human sacrifices don't exist anywhere in the world at present. They're a thing of the past.
What is there to understand about murder? Asks the policeman, who is investigating a series of murders.
That was very interesting. Thank you, Miss Turner.
Not at all. I like talking about it. I'm often alone here with my work. It feels good to be able to chat. But now I'll have a look at that bone you brought.
Good.
We are now in control of Miss Turner.
Well, did you get anywhere, Miss Turner?
Not really. Not yet, anyway. It'll take a while.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we cannot run away as far as possible.
That came from Africa. Father brought it back with him. A small statue. A small Greek statue. A Mexican god. He's obviously hungry, and only human sacrifices will satisfy him. I got this mask in Central Africa. They wear them for rites that are supposed to cure diseases. Their witch doctors use them to drive away evil spirits. This mask is worn for New Year's celebrations in New Guinea. A death mask. In the Sudan, they put masks like these on warriors who died while hunting. This is from Easter Island. Very mysterious. I'd like to know how my father got hold of this silver mask from Kenya. Masks like this one are worn by tribal chieftains for initiation ceremonies.
Maybe he stole it?
This Greek vase was given to us by a local resident. She thought the museum would be interested in it, but it's just a cheap imitation from a junk shop. It says Made in Hong Kong on the bottom.
So why is it here amongst all of these priceless artifacts?
The head of a Greek statue. These pieces fit together, but my father and I never managed to figure out where they came from. These sculptures don't belong here. I bought them from a junk dealer for just £20. I ought to take them home with me. I'll put them in the living room. These sculptures don't belong here. These sculptures don't belong here.
Okay.
There's methanol in there. It's sometimes used to clean up relics.
Don't show this to Halligan, as he will probably try to down it.
Father's distiller. These are pieces of very old statues. It's not easy to put them together.
We are unable to get a description of what this actually is, but this machine is a slicer. And it slices bones, as you can see.
I'll never get the bone under there.
No, that's why we have this sliver of bone right here. Is that enough? I think that's it.
There's some metal residue here. It's gold. The sickle's from England. It could be a Celtic artifact, but we haven't been able to date it yet. Antique muzzle-loader pistols. Pieces of broken vessels. The sheath of a dagger. That's a stiletto from the late Roman era. This dagger needs restoring. A curved dagger. I think Father brought it back with him from Turkey. These stilettos were found during the excavations in Tenochtitlan, which is now Mexico City. Forbidden archaeologies. My favourite. Excellent research. Very mysterious. Forbidden archaeologies.
Okay, we will get back to that.
This statue's from North Africa. I think it represents the god of the earth. A relief. It's just come back from the restorer.
Well, that's a relief. Ah yes, I believe that I need to do this.
That's interesting. The notches in the bone were made by a sharp instrument. The sickle matches the notches to a T.
And now we can have a read of this magazine.
Hey, didn't this edition mention something in connection with sacrificial rites in Britain? Let's see. Yes, here it is. An article about the Druids and their sacrificial rites. The latest findings indicate that in ancient England it was probable for for their high ceremonies the Celts usually preferred to use. Incredible. It all fits in with this bone. I'm sure the detective will be very interested.
We could at least give him this magazine so he can take it away for reference.
The wash basin. 2 bottles of developer. Father hates it when I use up all his chemicals. The sun. It's amazing how many cultures make it one of their goddesses. This image is from Australia.
Even though we have a close-up of this cupboard, there is nothing that we can actually do with it. Maybe we will return here later.
Mr. Halligan? I believe I've found something interesting about your bone.
Go ahead.
In my opinion, this bone was worked on.
With a sickle?
Yes, and probably with a sickle made of gold.
What makes you think that?
The bone bears notches matching the cutting form of a sickle to a T, and I found a trace of gold in one of the notches.
A golden sickle? Who would use a weapon like that in order to cut a human being to pieces?
That's what I asked myself as well. I found an interesting article which could help us. According to the historian Arthur Blake, the Britannic Druids carried out very bloody sacrificial rites. He found out that such rites took place at major celebrations of the Celts. He assumes that consecrated golden sickles were used for those rites.
And how does he know about these things?
He learned about it from old inscriptions he's translating at the moment. Interesting, huh?
Celts? Druids? Quite some time has passed since then, hasn't it?
Of course, but the descriptions in the article absolutely match the findings on your bone, Mr. Halligan. I'm sure the author of the article can help you.
What do you think? Could this Blake be right?
I don't know. Maybe he just wants to make money with horror stories about ancient Britain, but the bone you've shown me would match his theory quite well.
Have you ever seen anything similar in your career?
Oh, Mr. Halligan, you don't know the Aztec skull walls. If you'd seen those, you'd consider your bone harmless.
Maybe, but that was centuries ago. The victim of this murder was found this morning, and it was found in London. So you think this murder could be a ritual murder?
Yes, it would be possible. There are several occult sects and Satanists. They like checking their history books and adopting archaic rituals.
What did you say this author's name was?
Blake. Arthur Blake.
Was there any mention in the article of how you could get in touch with the man?
I thought you'd ask that. His address was printed below the article. 366 Pinewood Road, Northampton.
I'm going there now.
Mr. Halligan, I'm interested in this, particularly because of my job. I'd like to help you with your case. Would you take me with you?
Impossible. It's confidential police work. I have to see him on my own. I'm sorry.
I'm sure my knowledge would be to your advantage, Mr. Halligan, and I think it would be really interesting to work on a case like that.
Oh, well, when I think about it, perhaps that's not a bad idea at all. Perhaps there will be more examinations to be done. Okay, Miss Turner, let's do it like this. I'll keep you informed on the case. If I hear anything new or if I need your help, I'll contact you. What do you think?
All right. I'll see you later then.
Yeah, see you later. And thank you, Miss Turner.
Let's check up on our old friends right here. He's still alive. It sounds like he's snoring. I think we can avoid a murder charge for the moment.
This must be it. Pretty out of the way. Mr. Blake's vehicle really is a vintage car, that's for certain. Looks like he made this letterbox himself. Not much to see. I hope he's in.
That watering can is massive.
It's locked.
How do you know? You haven't even tried it.
Ah, it says Blake. This must be the place. Mr. Blake?
Yes?
My name's Brent Halligan. I'm a detective from Scotland Yard. I have a few questions I need to ask you.
Scotland Yard? What's this about? Is something wrong?
I'd rather we discuss this in private. Do you mind if I come in?
I'm not sure. What's happened? Is there a problem with one of my publications?
No, sir. I'm investigating a murder case. Perhaps you could help me? It really won't take very long.
Murder? How awful. But what's it got to do with me?
Mr. Blake, I'd really prefer it if we could go somewhere a little more private. May I come in?
Well, yes, certainly. Come on in.
An old pendulum clock with a Roman face. Mr. Blake seems to be a man of taste. Still, I wouldn't buy a thing like that.
So, you're not a man of taste?
That armchair looks really comfortable. I could do with one of them in my office.
Your office that is a complete bomb site? With pizza boxes strewn everywhere?
I'd better not sit down. Might create a bad impression.
No, sorry. Pizza boxes.
An oil painting. It's not quite to my taste.
What's with this dramatic music?
Books. A lot of books. And they're almost all historical works.
I'm not sure if there are any individual books that we can pick out.
That's a pretty good map of the world, considering how old it is.
What, the map or the world? Hold on. This looks like one of those bottles of ethanol. Whoa! What the hell? Why is Miss Turner's spirit standing right here?
You're the author of a book on Druids, am I right?
Yes, quite correct. In fact, I'm just working on a revised version for the next edition. But what makes you so interested in my book?
I'm currently investigating a series of murders in London. I've made some interesting discoveries that I'd like to discuss with you.
What series of murders are we talking about?
The skeleton murders. You may have read about them in the papers.
Oh, yes. Of course. A terrible business.
Mr. Blake, I believe there may be some sort of ritual behind these murders.
Well, what makes you think that?
Dr. Turner from the Anthropological Museum in Oxford examined one of the last victim's bones for me. She found residual traces of gold on it and round notches.
Round notches, you say?
Yes. Does that mean anything to you? Doesn't your book on Druids mention ritual killings for which a golden sickle was used?
True. Are you saying these murders are based on the same ritual?
That's what I've come to ask you.
But that's impossible. It can't be true. My God. It would be unthinkable. It would confirm all my translations. I've been researching the history of the Druids for 30 years now, but I've never yet found proof of my greatest fears.
Your greatest fears?
Yes, the perfection of the final ritual, the final confirmation of the Druids' power.
I'm really sorry, I can't take this seriously right now. I know this is meant to be a complete lore dump, but still, this is just very distracting.
What's this final ritual all about?
This is the text I wrote down during my travels through England and France. You know, when you travel through the country, you can feel that many locals still believe in the old Celtic customs. A group of farmers in the south of England let me copy the inscriptions on a megalith that stands in a field there. They claim that there used to be a huge Druid temple close to their house, but there's nothing left of it now. Whatever. I managed to translate the text, at least in part.
Okay, Mr. Blake, please come to the point. What does it say?
It says that the last of the Druids saw the fall of their priesthood coming in the year 1000 AD. In the confusion surrounding the final destruction of the order, a demonic superior Druid seized power, using his knowledge of Druid magic, not for the good of his people and to honor the gods, but to submit all of mankind to his rule. In order to secure the survival of the Druids' tradition, and to complete his devilish work, he organized a final ritual, transferring the knowledge and power of the last of the Druids to 5 infants. These infants have always been referred to as the inheritors.
Go on.
The inscription says that the ritual was not entirely completed. I've not yet been able to discover why. But from what I've learnt, the inheritors are strong and powerful enough to one day complete the ritual by themselves.
Right, so these inheritors, are they still infants? Or have they grown up?
What happened to the Druids after 1000 AD?
Well, that's a good question, Mr. Halligan. Scientists are still arguing on that point. Some suspect that many Druids simply became priests in the Christian church. After all, Christian priests took over the position in society that had formerly been reserved for the Druids. They simply changed their jobs.
And secretly continued their own religion?
That's not unlikely. They certainly influenced the Christian church. That we do know. Some experts believe that the Druids' order never ceased to exist. That's where the myth surrounding the final ritual comes in. It supposedly took place 1,000 years ago.
Right. But what have these murders got to do with the myth?
Well, that's just it, Mr. Halligan. I haven't told you the whole story yet.
There's more?
Yes. The inscriptions explain that the Druids' inheritors require the life force of other people to complete the ritual.
I see. And how do they do that?
According to legend, the flesh has to be cut off the bones of living humans and to be eaten. Only then can their life force be transferred.
You mean the victims of these skeleton murders were practically eaten alive by cannibals?
By Druids. Yes.
I don't believe it.
The worst is yet to come, Mr. Halligan.
What? What could possibly be worse than that?
If such skeletons have been found in London, bearing marks of a golden sickle, it can only mean one thing. The inheritors are preparing for the perfection of their final ritual.
Which means?
The myth says, once the ritual has been completed, the world will become a place governed by evil. Dark magic will be unleashed upon the world, and mankind will have but one choice: to obey or to die.
Great! And you really believe all that?
I believe it's possible. You know, Mr. Halligan, I'm not a superstitious man, but I've spent enough time studying Druidism to know that more goes on between heaven and earth than we can possibly imagine.
I quite agree.
You see, and the skeletons that have been found within the past few months fit in perfectly with the Druids' sacrificial rites. The day of the ritual's perfection is drawing near. Of that I'm certain. What we're looking at right now is just the beginning. Before we're through, more people will die, and the inheritors will soon be strong enough.
What can we do about it?
Time is running out, Mr. Halligan. You must find the inheritors and put them out of action.
I may be misunderstanding something here, but as far as I can understand, the inheritors are 5 infants who need to eat human flesh. Is that correct?
That's an easy thing to say, but how can I?
There may be a way. During my latest research, I came across something very interesting. If the story I've heard is true, then there's a certain item that was extremely important for the ritual 1,000 years ago.
What is it?
A piece of jewelry mentioned in the old inscriptions. The Amulet of Transformation. You should try to gain possession of that amulet.
The Amulet of Transformation? What's its purpose?
I don't know, Mr. Halligan. Nobody does. All I do know is that the myth says it's important for the completion of the ritual. If you find the amulet, you may be able to prevent the ritual.
How did you find out about the amulet?
My work led to the discovery of a connection between the Druids of Gaul and Britain. It seems there was a small group of British Druids who fled to France when the ritual failed.
What for?
I don't know. Maybe they wanted to save the amulet. I found out that a 13th century despotic French nobleman somehow gained possession of the amulet. I found a picture of him in an old archive.
Really? Let me see.
This just reminds me of the kids' TV show King Rollo.
Well, he doesn't look particularly friendly. Was he a druid?
Well, he must have had something to do with the Druids, but I really can't tell you how he gained possession of the amulet. However, he is the only clue that I can possibly give you as to the whereabouts of the amulet. I suggest that you make your way to Carmore. With any luck, you may find more clues leading to the amulet there.
All right, Mr. Blake. I'll get going immediately.
Take care of yourself, Mr. Halligan. Good luck.
Thank you very much, and goodbye, Miss Turner.